Welcome to Agoracom Interviews, a production of Agoracom in which we speak to influential small cap CEOs about important industry topics. And I promise you, this interview will be both a shocking indictment of the Canadian capital markets, as well as a gauntlet of action that will require the full participation of small cap companies, their shareholders, and their vendors. Joining us today is a man who really doesn't need an introduction, Terry Lynch, the CEO of Power Nickel, and more pertinent to today's critical topic, the founder of Save Canadian Mining, the advocacy group backed by industry giants such as Eric Sprott, Keith Neumeyer, Robert McEwen, and multiple other people, multiple sponsors who have got to tell you guys they've worked tirelessly and they've given generously to conduct investigations, generate reports, lobby high-ranking government officials and regulatory bodies for the singular purpose of putting an end to the devastating practice of illegal naked short selling in Canada and specifically in the Canadian small cap market. On a couple of occasions over the past 10 months, Save Canadian Mining has held major webcasts for the industry that have been very well received and attended, beginning with the Black Friday event in which Wes Christian and Dave Wenger were added to the team to discuss the landmark decision in a New York case in which broker-dealers could now be liable for failing to fulfill their gatekeeping responsibilities in monitoring client trading actions. Then came our Good Friday video in which Terry and his team not only discovered the shocking mechanism to facilitate the fire hose of naked short selling, but along with it, the specific actions that could easily be taken by regulators and government officials in order to put an end to it. As a result of that video, the Good Friday video, which laid the foundation for both a massive industry-wide social media campaign and a potential billion-dollar class action lawsuit against one of Canada's biggest banks, Save Canadian Mining was able to secure meetings with leading government officials. And it was at that point a decision was made to pause the campaign in order to give the talks a chance to bear fruit. We're going to talk about those talks, as well as a shocking revelation that came out of a legal document filed at the Supreme Court of British Columbia just 3 weeks ago. Suffice it to say, this third installment of this video series is the most important and serious one yet. And here to talk about is Terry Lynch. Terry, welcome, my friend.
Always good to be with you, George. We wish we were talking about happier topics, but nonetheless, here we are, and it's good to be back.
And this is our Friday. All of these have had a name: Black Friday, Good Friday. This is our Friday the 13th episode. People won't be watching on Friday the 13th, but that's only because you're in Colorado having great success at the big conference there. I'm on my way to Singapore by the time you touch base. So we just couldn't do it the way we normally do it, but it is the Friday the 13th. And by the way, before I get into the questions, because some people are going to be watching this for the first time, I got to say on behalf of everyone, and everyone just talks highly of you and the whole Save Canadian Mining Group. Thank you for your relentless and tiring work over these past few years. We wouldn't be here without you, and we owe you a debt of gratitude. And hopefully now, for everybody watching, we're going to be able to, really help you in this final push. So with that in mind, let's go chronologically and begin right where we left off with our Good Friday video. You were ready to move on the social media and funding campaign for a proposed billion-dollar class action, but you got the attention of some big names out there. Let's walk through everyone. Let's walk this through for everyone. Who would you speak to? How many times you speak to them? Give us, tell us what happened there, Terry.
Yeah, so we've always had ongoing dialogue with the Ontario government with the singular purpose of obviously dealing with this issue. Ontario, securities are a provincial jurisdiction in Canada. It's not a federal issue; it's a provincial issue. In Ontario, it's the biggest province and controls the biggest exchanges, and of course, yep. you really need to get them on side. So we've been focusing our energies there, and whether that was right or wrong, that's what we did. So we spoke to Premier Ford's office, and they were well aware of the issue. Went in through some MPPs like Steve Crawford, who's been very supportive and a really great guy, and got us in there. And so our first set of meetings was with his chief of staff, Patrick, I think it's Patrick Sackville, a nice guy, and a couple of his associates. And had our group, John Chisholm and several other folks and myself. and we laid out the facts as we know them, and they're pretty clear. It's pretty clear with anybody who looks at the TSXV index and the overall state of the commodities market and realize something's fundamentally wrong with Canadian capital markets. So we gave them the evidence. I think they believed the evidence, and they said they were going to do something. So this is when we sort of paused things. We said, okay, this is looking good. We know government has a process, and we were trying to be respectful of the process and go on with it. And then, days turn into weeks and weeks turn into months, and very little progress was made. I was unable to make a meeting with the premier, but John Chisholm went, and John's been tirelessly supporting this effort, and a great capital markets spokesperson. And he spoke with the premier, and again they're very supportive, I would say. When you meet them, the grinning and the handshaking and that sort of thing. But here we are. It's Friday the 13th, and it's the witching hour. Nothing has happened. Beer is sold in grocery stores now, and lots of other good things are happening. But saving our investors is not happening, George. And it's time we move forward. So we're no longer stopping. It's all systems go on our new plan to stop this atrocity.
And I got to ask you the obvious question: like, was there an understanding of both the act of naked short selling, the destruction of the capital markets, the destruction of tax revenue, and the wealth of retail investors and companies? Was there an understanding there? It's almost hard to believe that, because I know you've made the case. How did they react to that?
Yeah, I believe that they were they took the issue seriously, and that they do see it as a problem, and they're not stupid people, they're not and they didn't start the problem, George. That's for sure. This is an inherited problem, and it's a complicated one. So in some respects, I commiserate with government people, but at the end of the day, governments have to make hard decisions all the time. South Korea shut down short selling, period. Many other countries have moved that way. So, governments have to take harsh decisions. Look at COVID and the draconian things they did. Okay. We may or may not agree with them, but they made decisions, George. So governments can't forever get away with not making decisions. So simply being supportive and understanding the issue isn't enough. You need to act. But if you don't act, you need to get out of Dodge.
And we're going to display the TSXV chart here for everybody. Again, because there could be some new people watching. It's pretty clear, the trajectory of that. You're talking, Terry, how do we quantify this when you're talking to them?
Well,
hundreds of billions, maybe trillions.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. 2 weeks ago, or in the last 2 weeks, the Globe did a very interesting article talking about the collapse of the Canadian markets, and about their number was $1 trillion. It was curious, that whole article. They didn't talk about the obvious smoking gun, despite knowing the smoking gun. But that's a whole other thing with the mainstream media. But it's $500 billion, $1 trillion. It's a number that's massive when you think about what that would mean in terms of companies' ability to invest in projects and put mines in action, create high-paying jobs, reward our indigenous communities, because they're 10% of our workforce in mining, to pay taxes into our system. So, people ask me, and I say, it's not just an investor issue, it's a citizen issue. This impacts every citizen in the country, and it's like, we can't be, these are tough times. And Canada, in the first time in a long time, our resources are in demand, or will be in demand, and we could be making generational, positive changes for our country, for our citizens, and for our grandchildren, and we need to get on with the show. And it's just not happening. Look at the capital markets. You talk every day to companies. It's awful out there.
And, it's not as if a couple of years ago, Doug Ford, the governing, the government, the conservative governing body, they had some pretty big issues on their hand. COVID, and you can say maybe, hey, they didn't give you your due. But this summer, his biggest legislative victory was putting alcohol into corner stores. And by the way, I'm fine with that. Great. But it's not as if he had something massive to deal with. That was a high priority. I mean, that was his big victory. But not save Canadian mining. And by the way, which is all small caps, not just Canadian mining. Talk to me about that. I mean, how embarrassing is that, to him, to make that his big triumphant, legislative
Well,
piece?
again, I think, I'm personally, I think that I like the convenience factor. I think it might be great for some small business owners in Ontario, and it's long overdue.
Yeah,
So
I don't
I
knock
think
that.
kudos on that. But you know what? A much bigger issue is our savings and our investments and our capital markets and the very structure of our society is based on market mechanisms. Capital markets and capital growth, and that's been broken. And it would seem to me that priority should be fix the bloody capital markets, wake the hell up. That's my view. And it's it can't be any more black and white. And we've been pussyfooting around it with these guys, and it's now time to move to the next stage of action, for us and for our community, for our shareholders, for our citizens, to make this such a raging issue that they actually do something about it, George.
Suffice to say, this defies all common basic logic. And I want to move on to something that may explain all this. But before I do that, right, who is Buckhold Investment Management? Because we're going to talk about here that legal filing that was made on on August 23rd. So give us a little setup here. What is Buckhold Investment Management, and who is Murray Buckhold?
Yeah, I think that filing was delayed and actually was filed today, in actual fact. But in any event,
Okay.
Buckhold Investment Management is a investment advisory firm that Murray Buckhold is the chairman of it. He's a longtime industry veteran, 40-year broker, and he last 5 years working at CIBC Wood Gundy. That's who they are.
And let's talk a little bit about the monumental, because I'm going to read that quote, but let's talk a little bit about, if you can give everyone a little perspective on the monumental lawsuit that he's been engaged with
Yeah, I mean, obviously,
CIBC and CIBC
yeah,
World Markets.
yeah. Why don't you read the quote first, then let's talk about it.
Right, so I'm going to get it out here. So I've got it right here in front of me. First thing is I'm displaying the header of the filing from August 23rd. If there's an updated one, we'll find that and get in there. But here's the actual paragraph 23 that knocked me off my chair, and then I want to get your feedback, and has knocked a couple of people off the chair that I've read it to. I haven't even shared it yet. On April 19th and 20th, 2024, BIM provided the RCMP and the DOJ with a confidential package detailing evidence gathered over 12 years, which alleges that CIBC, TD, Waterton, Ciro, IMET, the OSC, and the BCSC acted jointly and in concert to suppress the truth. The submission has 166 exhibits and 3,631 pages of evidence. And brace yourselves, everyone at home, which demonstrates a pattern that is consistent with the definition of organized crime, which they then define criminal activities that are planned and controlled by powerful groups and carried out on a large scale. Terry, your reaction first, because you're the one that sent this to me back in the last week of August. When you saw that, how did that hit you?
Yeah, so it's interesting, through the advocacy of safe data mining, I've obviously, been contacted by some numerous individuals have been, super helpful. Danny Guy from Harrington Global, obviously, who's done the case in New York and is making serious headway there. And then I met Murray in Vancouver at a VRIC thing, maybe at VRIC in a year ago, and he went through this mining company that had been destroyed through this predatory short selling, and I had no idea about the whole situation of his specific situation, but when he went through it, it was like, my God, so it was, and of course it's before the courts, and we're not here to judge, but the fact that a very credible individual, in my opinion, who worked for a very credible firm, CIBC Wood Gundy, and in seeking to protect the interests of his clients at CIBC Wood Gundy, fought back against this and ultimately was terminated. I mean, it's scandalous, really. I think myself. We'll see how it all turns out, but it's part of a series of events, right? And this thing is so egregious on every level that we've talked about this with government people. We've sent this to the Prime Minister's office, and the Premier's offices, and this has been, and we tried to do, not get into the brawl on this issue, but here we are. We're going to have to brawl on this issue because they're just simply not prepared to change, George, for some reasons that we can all speculate. I don't know, but we need to, as a group, understand every single Canadian citizens, somebody's got their hand in your pocket. Okay. We need to get the hell out of there, and we need to get it out now. And this has got to stop. And this is just an example of the egregious behavior that we're going to start to expose, because maybe that's what'll work, George. If we expose all the malfeasance, and it's on such a staggering level, it's so embarrassing that maybe these guys will actually wake up and do some good.
Well, and I'll throw in my 2 cents there. The first thing I want to make sure everyone at home understands, this is an illegal filing with the BC Supreme Court. This is not in a blog post, in an article somewhere that maybe is unfounded. When you put something into a legal document like this, it's serious business. So I want to make sure everyone understands that. But just the fact that it was provided to the RCMP and the Department of Justice, the DOJ, and someone's actually used the words, which demonstrates a pattern that's consistent with the definition of organized crime. You and I have spoken about this for 3 years, and I've always said, Terry, there's no way they don't understand this. Maybe someone's on the take somewhere. And by the way, we're being very, very general here, right? We're not making an accusation, but I always said maybe someone's on the take somewhere, because it's just too obvious of a problem with too big of an impact for people, for government not to take action. So this may be this. Sadly, I almost don't want to believe it, but this sadly may explain what's going on, right, Terry? I mean, that the inaction and the dismissal whenever all the attempts you've made. What do you think? I mean,
Yeah,
how serious is this?
Yeah, I think it's very serious, and I think they'll be reeling when they have to deal with this, and they now are going to be forced to deal with it. My gut feeling, George, is that this thing is so big, it's just terrifying to banks and to government, and at some level, I get this. It's a sort of almost a category killer, right? I mean, the malfeasance has been so widespread, and the damages have been so huge. We're talking $1 trillion. Who's got $1 trillion, to pay for damages or triple damages, wherever you might go in this? It's massive. But, what I think, when you come back to the logical world and say, okay, the first thing you should do in any problem, and you've heard this since you were a kid, it's called stop the bleeding, right? Yep. If you're in an injury situation, you've got a wound, you got to stop the bleeding. Okay. So this is what we had proposed to the government. He said, look, guys, we don't know what the broader implications are, what all happens, but surely it makes sense to stop the bleeding. Okay. We're bleeding every day, George. We're losing investors every day. Investors are losing money every day. And we have not stopped the bleeding, despite, for the last 3 years, we've made this case. It's only and people initially, when we did this, they thought Eric's brought, they thought we had forks in our head. Okay. Now, in the last couple of weeks, I've been contacted by 3 major brokerage firms in this country, non-bank related, and they've said, "Look, we're serial regulated, so we can't officially get behind you, but we're behind you. We're going to get companies to support you. We want this to stop." So it's gone from, "Hey, Terry, you're crazy, and this is just focus on your company," to, "Holy shit, this is happening across the board, and it's destroying everything." And so it's like, I don't want to sound too doom and gloomy, because at the end of the day, my takeaway personally is this is so egregious now. We know the mechanism of action, and now we're going to embarrass them. And George, they will stop, I believe. if we continue with this, with what we're talking about, they will make the change. And as a result of that, it's going to be tremendous time to buy small caps, I think in Canada, and so I think I don't want everyone to be thinking, oh my God, it's Friday. I just don't want to hear the bad news. I want there to be, and there should be, and I believe this to the very core of my being, that this is actually a great time for us to actually show citizen revolt, like we did in the convoy of hey, we're not going to take this shit anymore. Okay, and that's the type of attitude we need, the convoy attitude here, to save our investors and save our citizens and make our country productive again. And we can do that. We'll all have to work at it. It's not going to be, certainly can't be just me. It can't be just you. We need a full team effort. We've done it before. We had them change COVID with this type of effort. We need them to change the investment community approach with the regulators with this type of effort. It can be done.
By the way, we're about to discuss that because we did have a plan. So we're going to give a few more. We're not going to go to the specifics. We'll release that in the next 10 days, the actual, but we're going to give some good broad strokes. But last question before I move on to the plan. Does it feel, no one has been able to gauge the temperature of all this better than you, because you've been there from the beginning when people thought you were crazy. Does this feel like the walls are closing in on the bad guys? Does it what's your sense? Does it feel like
that's my sense. I think they've, once we found out how they were doing it, it became like so egregious. It's so, you can't believe it. And then we'll see with cases like Murray and the Harrington Global and the spoofing, and I mean, we've got such great evidence, George. This is like, it's so wrong on so many levels, and we're going to now show the world. And I don't think they're really going to want the world to see, so, but they can't stop this because, we're on independent media. We're not controllable. We're going to show them nothing but the facts, what we believe to be the truth. And we're going to ask them to change their ways to save, not only Canadian mining, but Canadian small caps. And we're going to, and if they don't do it, then we're going to find people that will. I'm going out next week on Tuesday in BC, and I'm speaking at with what I hope will be the next premier of BC, John Rustad, and his MLA Chadwick, I believe, and we're going to talk about saving BC mining, and we're going to talk about the capital markets problems. And I think guys like John Rustad get it. They recognize that this is crippling BC, the lack of progress in mining, and something's got to be done. So this is there's I think we're fed up with it. It's time to get action and get active, and I think that's what we're going to do.
So let's move on to that phase of the discussion. And I love what you said about 5 minutes ago. You said, we want to do this like gentlemen. We really want to have good, constructive conversations. Now we're entering into a brawl. Now we're entering into brawl phase. So we've kind of, you've kind of coined this like sue plus social media pressure, create embarrassment, right? That's almost like what the strategy is now. So let's discuss first the sue part. Class action. How big do you think you want to make it? How many companies do you think will need to be involved at the outset? And how's it going to get funded? What's your plan to get it funded? Because we're going to ask everybody, Pubco shareholders, vendors, everyone, to kind of help out a little bit there. But let's talk about that. How big, how many companies, how's it get funded? And what are you going to need?
All right. And I'm going to answer that question shortly. Before I do, I made a mistake. I said Chadwick was Brett Chapman and the event is called savebcmining.ca. Encourage anyone that's in Vancouver area, please check it out. Go to the event. I think it'll be really revelation for you. So
yeah, no one can blame. By the way, you just finished 55 meetings in like 2 or 3 days. You're in a different time zone.
It's Friday night. And I'm pretty worn out, but
just that you're standing is great.
Please excuse me for that. But So again, basically, the plan is
how big, how many companies? That's where we're going there.
Okay. It's going to be hundreds of companies, George. Okay. And in terms of we've already advanced, $50,000 to a mining class action, not a mining class action firm, a major class action firm. to investigate the issue. We're at, and we'll be topping up another 50 before the end of the month, to basically lay the groundwork, lay the strategic plan on the class action side. So I don't know who ultimately we're suing. That's what the brains and the legal side will figure out. And I don't know how many companies will be part of the action. Our plan is to open up to everyone that wants to participate. And so that'll ultimately be decided through the legal process, through this investigative phase we're going through. But these guys are sharp. They're very bullish about our case, and that's the next step. So that's our view, that this will be a massive industry-wide vehicle that all will have ability to participate in. And the great news about that is many hands make light work. It won't, at the end of the day, when we talk about what we're going to be looking for companies, we're going to be looking for companies to donate between $5,000 to $25,000 in cash or stock, and as part of this process. And then what we're going to be doing, obviously, the class action thing, investigating, and ultimately moving forward on that. And then the other big plank of what we're going to do is we're really going to go on the attack of basically embarrassing the regulators, the provincial leaders, and the bank executives who are directly or indirectly responsible for this terrible state of the nation. And how we're going to do that is several interesting things. Many people that are watching this that are investors and have investments in public companies, especially mining companies, will be familiar with the 1559 tick down, infinitely known in the industry as a CIBC KISS, because most of the times it's CIBC. It's either CIBC or anonymous. Again, that's just stating a fact. I'm not picking on CIBC. I'm just saying that is the reality of it. And it's like it's wild. In my own stock and Power Nickel, I saw them 7 days in a row at 1559. The same investment bank, and there's, I don't know, 20, 30, 50 investment banks in Canada, somehow it hits the bid at 1559.59. I mean, how does that happen? If I ticked it up 7 days in a row, I'd be in the Huskow jail right away.
3 days in a row, we'd be bailing you out.
Yeah. So, and again, that's just one example, and that's we chose Power Nickel. Trust me, George, hundreds of public companies are experiencing this every day, not just in mining, across the board. And it's like cost us, well, the estimates are $1 trillion, $500 billion, pick a number. It's cost a whopping amount of capital in terms of the capital structure of these companies and what we could have done in terms of investment. So partly what we'll be doing is we'll be basically all the companies that are active in this will be watching for this tick down, and then the company will tweet it out, and they'll be asking their shareholders to retweet it out with specific hashtags, which will be targeting the regulators, targeting the politicians, targeting the bank guys, okay? Because individual citizens need to get active. Individual shareholders need to get active. And so it's one thing to shut down Terry Lynch and George, okay, and to shut down, various entities. But if we have 6 people, it's one thing. If we have 600, that's another thing. If we have 60,000, it's another thing, okay? And that's where we got to get. You think about how many people supported the convoy. That's what we need. We need a convoy effort here, okay? And once we start tweeting out or Xing out this, malfeasance that's happening on a daily basis to our companies, that's going to get massively aggravating for all these guys, because they can't block 60,000 or 600,000 Canadians. Okay, it's going to be terrible for their brains. Political, banks, regulators, they don't want this scrutiny. They don't want to be looked like the bad guy. And unfortunately, we don't want to make them the bad guy, but they have done nothing. They've allowed this to happen. So unfortunately, they are the bad guy right now. They need to wake the hell up.
This is the brawl.
So this is part of the brawl, but that's one part of the brawl. We're going to bring on Murray Buckhold. Okay, we're going to dive deeper into this whole story. We're going to bring on Danny Guy and the Harrington Global. We're going to hear from people that have spent millions of dollars legally already, and these are smart people, George, as smart as I've ever run across. So these are not dumb people. They spend a lot of their own money because they believe they've got a case. I believe they have a case too. We're going to give them a platform to show the Canadian public and the world just how bad things are here. Okay. And let's talk about spoofing. Okay. What is spoofing? You know, first you short the stock, then you got to drive it down. How do you drive it down? You put up a bunch of bullshit bids that don't really exist. Okay. We
or
now have,
sells,
yeah,
bullshit
yeah,
sells.
our pardon me, sellers. And we
We
now
love
have
the
proof.
bids.
Yeah, I don't love the bids. We now have proof of this across like 24 companies. So we'll start to get into the case of those companies. So it's going to get embarrassing. Okay. This is disgusting that we have to go this far. We tried to do it the civilized way. Okay. But say la vie, at the end of the day, we're entrepreneurs and we're citizens, just like we did in the convoy. We stood up as a nation and said, we've had enough of this shit. Okay. We need to change. Okay. And that's basically where we're at with the investment side of things. We're frustrated and we've got a good reason to be.
And I want to reiterate, you said earlier you're going to ask public companies to make to contributing $5 and $25,000. I love the fact that stock is an option for them. That's
Yep.
great. I'm also going to say shareholders, all of you. I don't care who you are, big or small out there. You can see it over Terry's left shoulder. Donate. You got to get to the Save Canadian Mining website. If you can do $100, we appreciate it. Great. If we do $500, that's great because we just get 1,000 guys do $500. There's $500,000, and I know
Yeah.
there's 1,000 of you out there. You gotta get involved. And one
And
more, Terry,
yeah,
vendors also, the Agorcoms of
yeah,
the world, the IR firms, the
yeah,
accounting firms, all the marketing guys. We all gotta put our money where our mouth is right now, and
yeah.
we all.
And one of the things that we're doing with this money, obviously, we're going to be funding some advertising and stuff, so we can really create a lot of exposure to this issue. We're But one of the most important things we're going to do, George, is we're going to be doing a search for the MD of Save Canadian Mining. Bottom line, I'm so busy with Power Nickel. Honestly, I'm flat out, and thankfully we've had some great success. And I've been like the face of this, but I feel like I'm holding it back. You know what I mean? I've done as best I can, to move it forward, but it's beyond me now, and I'll be there always to support.
Yeah.
But what we need to do is find that woman or that man to be the face of the organization now, to take this day-to-day fight over, and that person is going to be able to be paid very well, and they're going to be able to get options on 50 or 100 companies. So when this thing is successful, and we will be successful, those stocks are going to do well. Okay, as a basket, it's going to do very well. So this could be a super paying position because we want a killer. We want somebody that's going to be a pit bull and get at this every day and be relentless. And because we've got the evidence, right is on our side,
Not at all.
and we just need to be at it more consistently because it's honestly, George, I feel badly. It's been too long for us to get back in this, and we've been working away. But again, we both of us, you've got your business to build, I've got my business to build, and we're both doing great. And it's just these things take time, and it's like, but we now are at
Full
this
time. Need a full time
yeah,
person
we're at
there
this
to
key
really.
point, and we really need to get
Yeah,
this full-time person. So
absolutely.
if anybody out there thinks that they're the lady or man for the job, please contact us. If you're and I suspect we maybe we'll hire a search firm. I don't know how we'll do it, but we're definitely going to do it, and we're going to do
Well,
it
let's
quickly.
right now we're asking people like, look, if you're driven, you're mission driven, you're task driven, you get job, you have a history of accomplishing jobs and tasks and missions, and you're relentless, and you're self-started that doesn't need Terry and the team over your shoulder asking every day what you got to do, then apply. Just
Yeah,
get to the Save Canadian Mining website, get to the contact us section, put your name forward, put your resume forward. You're going to get consideration. And by the
yeah,
way, Terry, you're not holding anybody back. And I'm not saying this an empty platitude, not because you're here, but I'm Greek. And what you've done, man, is a Herculean. You and the guys, because I know it's not you alone, but you started
no,
it.
definitely not.
And then
Yeah.
you've got this. You're like Forrest Gump. You started the run, and then a couple more people join you, a couple more people. Now you've got all these people running with you. But your efforts have been Herculean, but you're also 100% right. We're now at that really serious point where we need someone who daily from 8 till 6 this is their only mission to knock off 100 things a day because you can't do it, your team there can't do it, and then you've got guys like me and
and
the
we
other
can,
vendors helping out. We
and we can,
can't.
and we will continue to bring the help. Like Eric Sprott's been super helpful, as you know, Rob McEwen, Keith, and all the guys, John Chisholm.
Unbelievable.
There's so many people, can't mention them all tonight, but they're all there for us, honestly, and they'll be there to support this. But again, they're all busy people, so that's why we need to have our own focus group, our own leadership to do it on a day-to-day basis. So that's critical to what we're trying to accomplish here. In the interim, we'll
And
get it going.
unfortunately, Terry, there are probably going to be some good people out there because of what's happened in capital markets
It's
who don't
unfortunate.
have a job and they're
Yep.
looking for something. So, guys and gals, apply. Okay, do that
Yep.
for sure. And last thing I want to bring up, and by the way, for everyone at home, we're going to put out these details on the social media campaign, the posts, and the tweet. We're gonna give an entire manual to everybody within a 7 to 10 days of this interview going live and everybody watching it. We just want you to get fired up, but it's going to be out there. We are going to literally hand it to you, and all you have to do is copy and paste these things into your socials at the time we tell you to do them. If it's the 1559, if it's some other things that we're doing, so we're going to make it real easy for everybody. But I want to talk about one more thing, and I know investors are going to love this because look, this is a time for everyone to come together. There's no territory here. So I'm a Gorcom, right? But I'm talking to everyone at a Gorcom. I'm talking to everyone at CEO.ca. I'm talking to everyone at Stockhouse. I'm talking to everyone who's on FinTwit on X, who's in the small cap space. We are going to gamify this for everybody. And again, we'll provide details later, but essentially what we're going to be doing is we're going to be rewarding participation. We're going to be rewarding people who get the most likes, the most views, the highest engagement. So you're going to be able to, make videos, make memes, make gifts, have fun with this, but at the same time, carry our message. That's going to be the important part. And they're going to, I don't know if we can talk about it here, but there are going to be some heavy rewards, right, Terry? This isn't going to be, hey, you're going to get a $5 Tim Hortons card or something like that. We're going to be tracking weekly, monthly, and then even at the very end after the campaign, and again, more details to come. So I'm just teasing everybody at home. And then the overall winners, and everyone's going to enter into this pot, and there's going to be some real potential sharing of the class action and things like that. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that, just conceptually, and why you're doing that, because you're not really
Yeah.
trying to.
Yeah, I mean, basically, none of the companies is really concerned with making money on the class action. We just want a fair playing field for our abilities to do good things and have our stocks rise when we do the good things and reward our shareholders. Simple, classic capitalism to come back in the Canadian markets. That's the reward the companies want. If the class action suit is successful, the reward could be massive. That, in my mind, we're seeing is let's reward our citizens, our shareholders, who have been the people that have been punished, George. Let's reward them. And the ones that can be more active to help us get the exposure, move forward, let's reward them the most. So that's just general, our, again, mindset, first principles, so to speak. So that's what we're thinking. And you've been tireless. George has been super, as much as, we've been here. We got to have people like George. We've had people at 6X. As other people have been part of this heavy mission that donating freely, of their time and energy and creativity to move us forward. We've needed every step of it, So, but I think this will be a cool and fun thing. And we've seen some amazing. I go on X now. X is my major source of news, and I see some really funny, great creative work that people are doing out there. And I know that they'll be able to do the same thing with this. And this will be massively embarrassing to the banks, to the regulators, to the politicians. And that's what it takes. It's got, unfortunately, we tried to go through the logic. That didn't work. So it's sort of, it's like when you're teaching your kids not to, play with matches. Sometimes they got to get burnt, and that's unfortunately where we're at with these groups, is they're going to have to suffer a little bit. They need to wake up.
And I love how you've involved everybody in the process. The public company is going to be involved in the class action, or they're going to be involved in the news releases, the press release, the email letters to their shareholders, the 359, 59, the 15, 59, 59 posts, and things like that. And the shareholders, we're going to really fire them up, because if you want to get to that, like you said, the trucker convoy kind of participation, we really need the retail. And what does retail love to do? They love to post. They love to they love to really hit hard if they can, and we're going to be rewarding you guys for it. So
Yeah.
Terry was the guy who came up. We created this whole social media plan, 20-page PDF thing for Terry, and it was Terry who also came along and said, "Hey George, by the way, here's what I'm thinking." I said, "Terry, I mean, I didn't even consider that. That's a stroke of genius." So guys, there's no excuse. Let's have some fun, but more importantly, let's make a point. Let's deliver a result. Let's drive this. And at the end of the day, why not a few great people also get really lucky and get rewarded for it? So I think that's a stroke of genius. Terry, last word to you, my friend. I know you're in Colorado. I know it's late on a Friday night, but last word to you in terms of how you're feeling about all this and next steps. And then,
it was great, George, being in Colorado at Beaver Creek, which is probably the biggest and most important mining show in North America. It was an amazing show, and obviously all the industry leaders are here. We spoke to many of the biggest investors in the planet and a lot of my peer companies. And there is, growing enthusiasm in the industry for obviously what is a very dynamic commodity market. And it looks like the commodity market's going to come back. It's already come back in a very healthy way. Look at gold, look at silver, other commodities will have their day. I think people can see that overall that the tech market's pretty toppy, and that if you look at the commodity and the equity markets, the equity markets are high and the commodity markets are low, and just the move back from bad to less bad is going to be massive. So the opportunity has never been better to invest in mining companies. The only reason why one wouldn't invest in mining companies is because of this, structural problem in our capital markets. We shouldn't be there. But if you believe in yourself, if you believe in justice and right in this world, this thing is so bad, it's going to get good. We're going to work on it together. We're going to make it happen. And in the end, if you're an investor, this is going to be tremendous time for you. This could be life-changing time for your investments. So join us. Let's help this all come together and do something great for our country.
You got it, Terry. Thank you. And all because of you and the guys. You guys, the tip of the spear. It's up to all of us now to to pick up our share. Like you said, many hands makes it what was
Light
the term?
work. Many hands
Makes
make light work,
work.
George.
Many hands make light work. So that's what we're going to do. Terry, thank you. Congratulations on everything that went on there in Colorado. Have a safe trip back. I'm off to Singapore. That's why you and I couldn't cross and get this done. But for everyone at home, thanks for tuning in. We've been here about 42 or 43 minutes. We never take your time for granted. No doubt Terry's giving you more powerful information here. We've shared some really great information about what's going on and a plan of action. I can't stress this enough. You guys just got to get involved, and we're going to make it easy for you. Watch for the social media manual that we're going to put out for everybody. But in the meantime, start talking to your fellow board of directors, start talking to your fellow CEOs, start talking to your vendors, start talking to shareholders. Say,
Share
hey,
this
we got a
video
job to
everywhere.
do. We got a job to do. So thank you, everyone. Thanks, Terry. Friday the 13th. I know everyone's going to be watching this a few days after Friday the 13th, but it sounds like a good day. And
Right.
thank you for everything. Everybody home, have a great night. Have a great day wherever you are. And we'll see you next time.